why in the world would someone who lives so far away from me call me that? Hi, neighbor. Welcome to Anchors of Encouragement. I'm Tim Maudlin, husband, adoptive parent, Bible class teacher, and the persistent encourager. Did you finally realize your dream of having a family only to have your happily ever after turn into a nightmare? Have you ever been told you're failing your kids? Life can be tough. Storms in life are inevitable, but there are ways to remain anchored when life knocks the wind out of you. In Anchors of Encouragement, my mission is to throw adoptive parents a lifeline and be your anchor, to teach you biblical solutions for modern-day problems so that you can weather the storms of life too. If you're ready for real and raw talk that leads to peace beyond comprehension so you not only survive but thrive in life's storms, this podcast is for you. Hope and healing are on the way. Hi, neighbor. I would like to share with you a couple of stories today to illustrate why I just called you neighbor, and then secondly, why I created the podcast Anchors of Encouragement. The first story goes back to when I was a little boy. I remember this day when I was visiting my Uncle Merwin, and a friend of his pulled into the driveway. This friend was Mr. Tash. Mr. Tash lived about a mile from my uncle's house. And I remember Mr. Tash opening the trunk of his car, and he was pulling out these jars of honey to show my uncle. Now, why I remember all of this, I think, is due in large part to what happened next. When Mr. Tash saw me, he smiled and said, "Hi, neighbor." And I thought, why in the world would someone who lives so far away from me call me that? We lived at least 8 miles apart. I must have looked at him like he had 10 heads. He just smiled and went on showing my uncle the honey. A few years later, though, I started to understand what Mr. Tash already knew. He understood what it meant to be a neighbor. It doesn't matter where we live in relationship to one another. We are all neighbors. You know, in this day and age, it seems like we're more connected than ever before. With the internet and the immediacy of being able to contact one another, we are more connected. This podcast is a great example of that. I'm recording these episodes in Indiana, and there are people on the other side of the world listening to them. That's really cool. In some respects, though, we are more disconnected than ever before. It seems we can stay behind our computer screens or our phones, and we don't interact with one another. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we would just greet each other with a simple phrase, "Hi, neighbor"? Mr. Tash understood this principle that comes from the book of Luke, chapter 10. Verse 25, there was a lawyer who was challenging Jesus. And I'm going to paraphrase a lot of this, but basically the lawyer says, "Well, what do I have to do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus said, "You tell me, you know the law. What's it say?" And the lawyer proceeded to say, "Well, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And Jesus basically says, "That's correct. You've got it." Well, the lawyer wanted to justify himself. He wasn't satisfied with that answer. So he asked Jesus a question. He said, "Well, who is my neighbor?" And that leads us in the text to the story of the Good Samaritan. And that leads me to my second story as to why I have created this podcast, Anchors of Encouragement. A few years ago, my family and I were driving to dinner after church services. And as we were getting off the interstate, there was a large object in the road. It had to be a large rock. Unfortunately, I couldn't avoid it, and I hit it. And I knew immediately that my tire was gone. I was able to get the car off the road, and we started to assess, well, how are we going to change this? Because we had never changed a tire on this vehicle before, we got the owner's manual out to see, well, where is it? The tire on this car was in the undercarriage of the vehicle, and to access it, you had to unscrew this rod that would lower it. Okay, that's fine. So we got the lug wrench out, and I went to put it on the bolt to turn this, and the nut and the lug wrench weren't compatible. They didn't fit. And we thought, uh-oh, what are we going to do now? About this time, a truck pulls up, and the driver said, could you use some help? And we said, if you have some tools, it would be great, because the tool we have to lower this tire doesn't fit. And he said, let me see what I can do. And he went to his truck, and I've never seen so many tools. I won't tell the whole story here, but he went back and forth several times to get the right tools. He even had a better jack than what we had in our car, and he changed our tire for us. It was something that he said while he was working on the car that really impressed me. He told me that he liked to have all these tools in his vehicle just in case he came upon somebody who needed help, because he was mechanically inclined, and he said, I can help people. So he had prepared himself ahead of time with all of these tools so he could help others. Well, he finished changing the tire, and I remember asking him, I says, can we buy you lunch? And he says, no, I got to get to work. And he was on his way. To this day, I don't know who he was. He didn't tell me his name, but I remembered that he had done what he could to be neighborly to us. And that's another reason that I've created this podcast, Anchors of Encouragement. Not only do I want you to feel safe and welcome by calling you neighbor, but I want to have prepared ahead of time a place that you can come and you can get resources, affirmations. You can get that little boost you might need when you're going through some difficult times. Let's get to the daily doable and put a bow on this episode. The next time you greet a friend, a family member, a stranger, I don't care who, but the next time you see someone, instead of just saying, how are you, or hi, or nothing at all, greet them by saying, hi, neighbor. Now, some of them might look at you like I looked at Mr. Tash, like you have 10 heads. That's okay. Others might look at you and smile, and that might be the invitation for a conversation. And also, I want you to think of ways that you can be an encourager to other people. What are your strengths? What do you do well? And prepare ahead of time so that if the opportunity presents itself, you can be neighborly to someone else. That's all for this episode. I want to thank you for joining me. Until next time, this is your neighbor Tim, encouraging you to do what you can now. If this podcast has given you the courage and confidence to face storms in your life, the number one way you can thank me is to leave a written review on Apple Podcasts. Tell a friend about the show. Take a screenshot of this episode and share it in your Instagram stories and tag me at Tim Maudlin. You can also connect with me in my Facebook group, Anchors of Encouragement. So until next time, this is Tim encouraging you to do what you can now.